Hello, I'm Wendy Wilson, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Realizing Potential. I just get such a high from being around creative people because I lack that skill and that acumen, but I am around one of my all-time very favorite. She's an instructor here at Albany State University, a very dear friend, and has just brought such a wealth of information and knowledge and holistic support and growth to Albany State University. She is none other than Dr. Elizabeth Delancy.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's always a treat. It's always a treat. And I was trying to be funny about the whole creative piece because, you know, I'm still doing stick figures when I draw and that kind of thing. But you have such a wonderful gift in terms of blending the arts.
Thank you.
And of course, your formal training, if you will, as it relates to the arts, that discipline is dance, and you do that well and provide that level of instruction here. But your ability to see beyond that world and to incorporate so many other genres of the arts and creativity has I've always marveled that.
Oh,
so
thank you. It's easy to do here. There's so many talented students.
Okay, good. That's good. That's good. On that note, you have broadened the discipline, and that is why you are here today to talk about the new addition to the program. We actually have a dance minor here at Albany State University.
We do. I am so terrifically excited. We worked on it. Actually, it was the beginning of the spring semester, and it was like a lot of work.
Yes.
And fingers crossed that it would launch this semester.
Sure.
So I'm just really grateful to the registrar's office and the staff assistant and my program, the Visual and Performing Arts Department, for working together to really push that through so that we could launch it this semester, because it was tentative for the fall, but definitely for the spring. And I was just looking at some of the students that needed the classes so that I could retain them for a little while longer before, launching them into the deep. So I'm very excited.
You should be.
I'm very happy.
Yeah, yes. I know you put it, and certainly you want to commend those areas that help to make this or come to fruition. But you laid the groundwork, and you were consistent and just committed to seeing this come to completion. And I know you and I've had many conversations about the hard work that went into it.
Sure.
And part of that is, and you've shared this, is trying to educate individuals about the influence and the impact of the arts.
Absolutely.
And how that permeates other facets of an individual's life. Speak to that, why it is so important.
It is so important. We cannot emphasize enough the importance of soft skills. Okay. And the students that are consistently engaged in the arts, whether seeking a profession or just for enrichment, they have a better grasp of it and they have more success. I look at, within the visual and performing arts, in each area, the students are required to produce. And not only are they required to produce, which is, that real world aspect that's missing a lot of times from other majors, where it's like you get your education and then you go out there and then hope that what you've learned will, come together for you. But here they get instant feedback from me, from the audiences, for when they go to audition. So they're constantly in that moment. But where the soft skills comes in is that they are also, the skills come in, they are also required to speak about their craft. And I tell them all the time, look, if you want to do this as a profession or whatever profession you want to go into, sometimes you're going to need financial support. You're going to need to be able to make your case clearly, and you're going to need to articulate in terms that other people outside of your arena understand.
Sure.
So speaking without jargon, being able to conjugate verbs correctly, even in writing. So in dance, we emphasize all of that, the strength, the importance of the strength of writing and verbal communication, posture, how you speak in a microphone. All of those things come into play.
Indeed.
Yeah, we do, when we do our student shows or our productions, we have a school show that usually precedes the actual performance, where my students get a chance to speak with prospective Albany State University students. And so they are asked questions. They have to, hold themselves in the best light, because
Excellent.
the goal is to put your best foot forward. We can never relax when it comes to that.
Excellent. Thank you for bringing that up. And I was reminded this is, I see a theme, so that this means that this is something that we really need to build some traction with. Prior to this interview, I had an interview with our chief of police, and then prior to that, I met with Dr. Ochi, who's over our graduate program now. And both of them were very consistent in this theme about the importance, and it is essential, regardless as to what your discipline is, your degree pursuit, and what degree you have earned, that it has to be packaged with soft skills.
Absolutely.
And that is, fortunately, our new president, President Marian Fedrick, she is committed to providing a very holistic education.
Wonderful.
So that is one of her top priorities in her initiatives, is to ensure, regardless as to how the students don these doors, we need to meet them where they are, but more importantly, they all need to then, once they march across that stage, armed with their degree, all of them need to have been also presented or given an education as it relates to soft skills.
Absolutely.
It will determine if doors open for you or if they close. So to the point that you made earlier about having a command and an understanding and being able to intelligently articulate what it is that you are then representing. Dr. Ochi said the same thing, that he offers a capstone class, and that students required to go and present before the class a minimum of 7 times.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so again, that's intentional mastery is what I then thought of. And so you're saying the same thing. So be able to then share and inform about your craft.
Absolutely.
Verbally and in writing.
Absolutely. And one thing that I like to emphasize, because I know anytime you're in an institution where STEM, and of course we're in an area where medicine is emphasized, because we need it in this region. But what we fail to understand is that the arts really do undergird everything that we do. And then I'm here to plug dance, so health and fitness. Because the thing is, okay, so you work to attain this degree, but then you suffer the same ailments that you were treating your patients for because you were not physically fit. So there is a balance that we must strike.
Absolutely.
And so, being physically engaged. And what I love about the minor is that it teaches students that you can have both. You absolutely can integrate both and live a smart life, a holistic life.
Absolutely.
Because we do need that balance. It's not getting any less stressful out there, and so you need that outlet. Which brings me to another thing I wanted to share.
You may, and I was where great minds are thinking. It was like, I hope she discusses this opportunity for those who are part of my demographic, a little younger demographic than me. But yes, please share that.
Yes. So over this summer, I started a new initiative, and it is called Ballet Fitness for 30 years plus.
Okay, I'm in that plus.
Me too. And I'm really excited about that. A woman from the community reached out, and she asked me if I taught classes for adults.
Yes.
And I was like, well, I do. And I had already been teaching a community dance education class, but generally that would attract, high school and maybe a little younger middle school.
Yes.
And so I was like, well, you know what, let me brand this in a particular way so that people my age and a little bit younger and certainly older would feel comfortable, because we have so many lovely studios in the city.
We do.
But I mean, it is really targeted to the young ones, the babies all the way up to high school. And then here, of course, because we have the dance program, the college age, traditional and non-traditional students, they're covered. But for the people that, work here and for people who live in the community, there's really not an outlet. And so I started thinking, like, well, gosh, yeah, not everybody wants to do Pilates. And while Pilates creates beautiful bodies, I know I can't stand it.
Okay.
And and yoga's great. I prefer hot yoga, but I'm like, well, okay. And then what I did was I looked at the offerings that they had. So there's yoga, there's maybe a Pure Barre, then there's Pilates, but there's no dance for the adults. Yes. So here we have this program. And so it's taking off, and I've had a few faculty and staff members join, the ladies from the community, and it's really wonderful. And so there's an ebb and flow. I do encourage people to participate on a regular basis, because like with anything, the more practice you have, the better you get.
Sure.
And so, and just looking at the women who started over the summer and who have continued on with me.
The growth.
Wow. It is incredible. And they're like, oh, I've lost inches and I'm stronger. I mean, I looked at one woman. I mean, it just blew me away just thinking about it. When she started the class, we used ballet bars, and they're heavy pipe.
Okay.
So there were a series of pipes connected together. She could not lift the ballet bars and walk across.
Wow.
Now she can.
She can.
Now she comes in and she sets up the room. Well,
Oh, I
it's
love
fantastic.
that. I love that.
Again, it's that holistic thing.
Sure.
So not only are they coming and they get a chance to interact with one another, because how often do we really get a chance to say, hi, how are you, and how was your day?
That's so true.
And breathe, but speak to somebody who is in your age range and understand, somebody who understands like all the things that aggravate you.
Yes.
Or whatever. And then just have fun and laugh. There's so much laughter with it. So, I think that because the students have it, I'm really happy about that. And now we have that service for the community as well.
Well, a couple of things you reminded me of. I was in a meeting, a retreat a couple weeks ago. It was a leadership retreat, and one of your students, we did this exercise to name something that your colleagues would not know about you. And then one of your students in the class said, well, I've always aspired to be a ballet dancer, ballerina. And so now I have an opportunity to learn because I'm participating in Dr. Delancy's class. And so when I looked at her and I was like, and she of course looks like that could be another career path for her. Sure. She's a quintessential ballerina, which is very demure and petite. And but what I was struck by, and then it also mirrored an interview that I heard of course, we're constantly seeing interviews with the recent passing of Aretha Franklin.
Yes.
But what aligned in those two experiences, or those observations that I had, is that here we had this colleague that was still pursuing a passion. Right. And she's taking advantage of an opportunity that she did not probably realize would come for her, or come before her rather. And then it aligned with an interview that I saw of Aretha Franklin, who continued to live and follow all of her passions. So, in her 60s, she was taking classes at Juilliard, I understand, to become a trained pianist. And you're like, you're Aretha Franklin, you're not already. But again, she was still wanting to develop. And then another interview she had, and this one was with Oprah, is that she was taking ballet classes. Yeah, so again, the importance of continuing to live. Absolutely. And adding the arts as a part of that life experience.
Absolutely. Again, it just goes back to the importance of arts in a community. And we know that when these large companies, Fortune 500, et cetera, when they're looking to establish new divisions or branches, they look at the arts. What would the life be? What would life be like for the people that I would bring from everywhere to this haven? And I think that Albany State certainly has a strong part in that, because the arts is why the community will come to campus. We offer so many things. We build great minds, and we're going to create a legion of students that have a grasp of soft skills. But who we are is determined by our arts. And we have people in our visual and performing arts on the faculty that are internationally renowned.
Indeed.
And they give concerts often for free. And this is why people come.
They do.
And so everything that you would want, we have it here. And so it's just, just letting everybody know,
Right.
come and partake.
And this really is the Mecca in many respects, because even if there is a fee or cost attached to it, it is always very nominal and affordable to experience that. And so I very selfishly say, because of our friendship, that that I have access to experiences as it relates to the arts and cultural experiences, if you will, so I don't have to travel to New York or Chicago, because you bring that to us here in Albany.
Yes.
And people have been have always heralded you because of what you bring. And again, the beauty of your performances is that blend of the arts. So that is what students will then have an opportunity to build upon, or to add or develop, or even begin creating a portfolio with this dance minor. So what is the process in declaring that as a minor?
Well, simply, the student would go to his or her advisor, and then just making that declaration: I want to minor in dance. And because the minor is 15 credits, that's really an easy add-on. And we have so many students here that have that dance background. And so, I have fallen victim to this. I remember when I was working on my PhD, it's like, okay, now I'm going to be a serious student, and I tried to eliminate dance, and I was going to be, I almost lost my mind, because the thing is, that's who I am.
Yes,
that is woven into the fabric. And I learned that, and trust me, that didn't last long. I gave it a few days, and I'm like, no, forget this. I have to dance, because that's what keeps me centered.
Absolutely.
That's part of the way I worship as well. So, I think about the students who have this love for dance, and I see all of the different dance teams and things like that. So they're already dancing. Why not get credit for it? I know so many students who have gone through, particularly when we were at Darton, and we had the AA program, and so then you had the 15 credit hours that made up that area F. The 18 credit hours that made up what was the area F. I had so many students who were from the sciences to come, and we're talking about people who are now doing medical research, who danced as children, and then they came and they took classes and they performed beautifully with me. And I have one student who is actually now leading her own dance organization, and she was and is a brilliant scientist. So it's not an either or thing. And so what the minor does is it allows them to literally have both. And so the way that it's structured, there are 2 history classes, because you need to understand your history. And so we have 2 history classes, and then the rest you just choose, and you can create really a lovely program for yourself.
Excellent.
And it will accompany your nursing, your science, your architecture, whatever you want to do, and you have fun because you get to perform, and you get credit for performing as well.
Great.
So I think that it really creates a well-rounded student, which is what I think that we should strive for.
It's what the educational process was designed to be. I think because of just with the cost of and the the strictness as it relates to or the narrowness. I guess that's the word. I'm trying to find the right word, and I'm trying to address the affordability piece.
It can be exclusive. It really can be exclusive.
But again, because of that, I need to get in, and I need to get out. I need to, and so we missed so much because of that. And then, of course, just the changes, and as it relates to liberal arts, and we've lost quite a bit in higher ed. And I think we're seeing the residual or the impact because of that loss along the way. And so when you hear healthcare professionals come back to institutions, and I was having this conversation earlier, it is not just isolated to one institution. It is unfortunately universal in many respects, and they lack bedside manner, and they lack compassion. Well, those skills, those soft skills, they could have been learned
through the arts. I have been saying and beating this drum, I think, on every time you invite me. STEAM, inserting the arts it really does bring forth the humanity that we want to see in
Perfect
people.
word, the humanity.
Right. And with the dance program, they will get training. They will get opportunities to lead workshops because the program is a one-person program. It very much, I run like the dance company, like a professional company.
Great.
So you haven't, I'm the artistic director and costumer, everything else. But because the students work closely, they learn about costuming, scenic design, all of that. The people that I bring in to do scenic design, they learn that because that's also on the curriculum.
Okay.
So they get real world contact. It's really the best of both. You have liberal arts and it's also in the mix, it's almost like a technical degree as well.
Great.
Because you have all of those blended. And then you come away with something that you can have for forever.
Oh, yes. Those skills are always transferable.
Absolutely. And then certainly with the minor, you could go and teach while you're working your way through your master's degree or your PhD.
Sure.
So you have that, or you certainly have the vocabulary to continue on and study. I when I was teaching at Florida A&M University, I learned of so many students that had gone to Alvin Ailey. Math majors and science majors, and unfortunately they stopped right before they were about to graduate. So I'm not encouraging that, but sometimes when an opportunity presents, you just have to go for it. And I mean, they can certainly come back to it, but we're talking about people who are in the hard STEM programs that have enjoyed professional careers with a flagship company. I mean, internationally renowned company.
Right.
And and so that I think that again, both can coexist, and we can live healthier, happier lives when we include dance.
Absolutely. In this case, absolutely dance. And I think we need to continue with that shift, and again, as I said earlier, build some traction with it. It is essential to. It's not an if thing anymore. Society is coming at us real time, literally.
Oh gosh, yes.
And we find ourselves lost and not. How did I get to this place?
Yes.
Yeah. And so because your life lacks balance.
Absolutely.
Right. And that is a part of our overall health.
Right.
Right. And so it is not a frivolous indulgence. It is a necessity.
It really is. I mean, it has a way of elevating and grounding people at the same time.
It does.
And I think that as we continue to see the peeling back, and shaving of the arts, then that we created a generation that is abrupt and harsh.
Yes, it is.
And we've got to intervene, and we've got to insert the arts into that steam, because otherwise we're going to be continually holding in services that are ineffective, because you can't learn soft skills in a vacuum.
I agree.
There has to be practical application.
Indeed.
People have to understand, okay, so when I carry myself in this particular way, this is what happens.
Sure.
For the good or for the bad.
Right.
And there's nothing like practical application. I really wish I had understood when I was taking geometry how much I would use it as a dancer. And I hated geometry.
Yes.
I think it was more that Sister St. Bernard was a little senile or something. But I never had a true appreciation.
Right.
But I think about how much I reference it. I think about although I did not go into the hard sciences because, the math kind of scared me. But we are physics.
Indeed.
We are architecture. We are design. We are all of those things. And when you come to our productions, you see all of that.
Sure.
Because we are all of those things. So if you want to have better scientists, push the arts. If you want to have smarter mathematicians,
I agree.
push the arts. Music is nothing but math, and dance incorporates music. It incorporates timing. Even when there is an absence of music, text has a rhythm. So it's like understanding how everything is integrated. And when we learn that, when we start going back to really our history as people,
Yes.
Before we compartmentalized everything, we will find more balance. If you look at, for example, because I'm of African descent, traditional African culture, it incorporated the singing and the music and the life and the medicine and humanity and socialization and the sacred and the secular overlapped. All of that was together, and you had communities that were whole. communities that helped one another.
Sure.
You know, and so I think that especially in an era where division seems to be the flavor, that's one way that we can continue to assert our humanity and you know, assert ourselves as human beings, and also express. You know, one thing about this, and you know, anybody who's come to my performances of the dance program performances, there is always a comment about the world.
Oh, yes.
In which we live.
Yes.
And so, you know, I make no apologies for that, but I knew that coming into this age, when we hit 2016, that there was going to be a lot of material.
Yes.
And you see that with the comedians, you see that in the visual and the performing arts. We see these reactions. And we need this because that provides us a relief, a release that is badly needed.
Indeed.
Because you can watch so much of the news and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to bang my head on something.
Right.
Or you can come and release it all.
Right.
And dance, and then if you're a performer, put it into your...
Oh, yes. And you are masterful about integrating that. We have a very dear mutual friend, Gloria Pat Ridgway, and we often have conversations, she and I, outside of you, about your performances. And so, of course, you have the opportunity, or you extend the opportunity to the attendees to then put on different lenses, if you will, or see or experience it through different lenses. So of course we're coming to see dance, but because you've infused the music and the singing, and then there's the visual piece. And so I have so many fond memories of attending one of your performances, or some of them not so fond. But, and what I mean by that, not discounting it in any way, and it's not in a negative way, I guess the word sobering is what I want to use. So there were opportunities to learn, and they were so sobering and painful, but nonetheless very, very precious and endearing experiences. So one of the ones that I was reminded of, and so here again, hand in glove opportunity coming to experience the arts and dance, but then it triggered the critical thinking for me at the moment. And so I believe it was your last performance. And I naively, because we're bombarded with information and news, but it is also very selective. So it was a reminder of how we have to be intentional and then seek information that is nourishment and allow us to grow and build. The point that I'm trying to make is the piece where you shared historically the church burnings that had occurred throughout history.
Yeah, starting in the 1800s.
Right.
All the way up to 2016.
Absolutely. And that was the point. So Pat and I, we sat next to each other and we were just struck because we were waiting for it to end in 19 whatever.
Right.
And it did not. And as you said, in 2016. So again, so what you were then able to then provide us were current history lessons or current lessons, a perspective and a timeline on history, providing a very broad social context about things still in many respects remain the same.
Absolutely.
But it was done very beautifully, if you will, through the form of arts. So yes, again, we don't want to continue, and I love to say, and this is a great platform, that Albany State is the forerunner, if you will, in infusing that and inviting the community to partake in that. And so the education is not just for those who pay the tuition to earn the degrees, that we then graciously share it with the community at large.
And I believe that is important because it's going to take a community to bring forth change.
Yes.
And you know, so with us being, if you will, the beacon on the hill, although we're not a very hilly landscape, I think that it is important that we are the forerunners, but then we do have community members who are grassroots leaders.
Yes.
And if we link arm in arm, we can get the people who have been uber marginalized and pull them in so that we can create a force truly for consistent, stable change, because there's so much ebb and flow. And and it's funny that you mentioned that church piece and then the juxtaposition of the opera singer.
Yes.
Ave Maria.
Oh, yes.
It becomes truly a point of prayer, circling back to how we have been able to make it through. But that supplication in the face of all of the terror that we have experienced as a people, just trying to live.
Absolutely.
And then we see it manifesting with the barbecue Beckies and the pool patties and things like that. And so when I look at our life in the church, and we're just going to worship. Before we could go into the building, we were, dancing around the building during the ring shout.
Yes.
So when we finally get the buildings, then we're subject to terror. And so, what I was thinking about with that is that our young people need to understand when we are in an environment where we're in a city that is predominantly African American,
yes.
Black, or what people like to call a minority majority. It is easy to forget, and it is easy sometimes to get comfortable and think that we are in I don't know how you could, but a post-racial, as particularly when President Obama was in office. Like, you turn on the TV and you see the Black president,
right.
and all that stuff, but and of course we saw people who were aware, and it didn't take much awareness to know that this undercurrent was
absolutely
building. And then now we're seeing the backlash. So it is important, I believe, in this institution to continue to show, not to depress our students, but to make sure that they are aware. And that's one way of saying, okay, now that you've seen this, do you understand why it's important that you vote?
Indeed.
Do you understand why it's important that you get what you need, including those soft skills, I'm going to come back to that, so that you can run for political office and be that voice of change that we are seeing, people come up. So, it all is connected.
It is interconnected. It absolutely is. Yeah. And again, the beauty of the arts and in this particular sector, dance. Yeah. So thank you for,
You're welcome. Thank you.
For all that you do. You make it. So that's the downside of it. You do it so masterfully well. You make it look easy, and then I've been very fortunate where you've included me in some of the performances to MC or
Yes.
to bring greetings. But what that has allowed me to do is I have an opportunity to come behind the scenes and witness the intricacies and how much work goes into a production that may last 30 minutes up to an hour, depending upon the content and what goes into it. And you're waiting, it's not over yet, but the timeline in terms of preparation. So
Yes.
I have a glimpse into what you do in preparing for all of that. So as I told Chief Fields, I always in an earlier interview is I stay in my lane and I let the masters do what they do so well. But thank you on behalf of the institution and the community for what you intentionally do and the thought that goes behind it, and always giving a very supreme caliber of work.
Thank you so much.
And I have been very fortunate enough because I grew up, my mother and father understood ingraining the arts in our lives. And so one of my favorite stories, I think I've shared this with you, is seeing Eartha Kitt perform in Timbuktu, and so that left an indelible mark upon me. But again, what we do here at Albany State University is, again, back to the word intentionality, and including and inviting people from all different walks of life to this great moment. So there are no excuses, and now you can minor in it.
Oh, absolutely.
You can minor in it.
Yes.
Let's give everybody, before we wrap up, contact information in case they want to learn more about the dance minor.
Right.
And about, is the ballet class for 30 years and up? Is that still open? Okay.
It is Mondays and Wednesdays for the ballet class, 5:45, so it's after work, no excuses. And but the contact number is the same. They can email me at elizabeth.delancey, not Delaney, Delancy, at asu.rams, and then my phone number is 229-317-6991. And they can people can get information about both.
Gotcha. And I caught it, and I'm going to get there. I heard that remark about there's no excuse after work. I know I took that personally.
Yes,
that was meant for me.
Yes, it was.
I am coming. I promise that I am coming. I need that. I'm always in pursuit of having balance, trying to maintain what little sanity remains.
We all are in that
But again,
pursuit.
I'm so proud to know you, to respect you, to love you as a very dear friend, and to
mutual.
share this space as work colleagues. I know, again, the hard work and passion that you put behind it. And so you helped, as the other colleagues in the fine arts that we have here, helped to put, in many respects, Albany State on the global map. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Viewers, thank you for joining me for this edition of Realizing Potential. I'm Wendy Wilson, and I will see you next time.